What's up, my archfiends of chaos? This is your Kid Rose Chaos with another Final Fantasy VII theory. I've been wanting to do this one, but I had to hold off until they release Crisis Core or release more stuff about Zack. Now, we all know, spoiler alert, if you haven't played Final Fantasy VII Remake, that Zack is still alive. And there is good reasons why Zack is still alive. In this timeline, he didn't get shot by the last three soldiers. Someone else had to save him. But we're going to get to that a little later on. Because this ties into the Arbiters of Fate. As you see, the Arbiters of Fate are responsible for changing the tides of time and history. Really to stop Sephiroth's ultimate plan. And even though Zack was meant to stay dead because it was ordained by fate, Zack was made to live for a reason. So, to stop Sephiroth, they're going to have warriors through time in the Final Fantasy VII universe fight against Sephiroth's evil, time-destroying plan. Or should I say, most likely Genesis, which is another theory in itself, but Genesis have sent... I'll go back to my whole spiel on this theory. Genesis has sent Kadaj remnant Sephiroth to the past, and remnant Sephiroth has wreaked havoc in the remake. That's why the remake timeline is a lot darker than the original timeline. A lot more dark stuff happens, and things that were supposed to happen now don't, because we killed the Arbiters of Fate before we fight Sephiroth, because Sephiroth has manipulated us to kill the Arbiters of Fate in order to get to him. Which Sephiroth took control of the Arbiters of Fate. That's why you see in the forms that you fight the Arbiters in, they look like Kadaj, Laz, and Yuzu. You know, so this warrior, the Zack will still go through the events of Nibelheim, still defeat Genesis, and go through all the stuff in Crisis Core. You know, now this is where I think that there's a possible Arbiter of Fate we probably never talked about, or an agent of Arbiter Fate. Because the compilation is in the remake, this makes the most sense out of all. And this is where it gets into it. You know, Dirge of Cerberus is part of the remake now, thanks to episode intermission. So, you know, Weiss and Nero are still doing deep ground stuff. So, that means, since we were not supposed to meet deep ground until Dirge of Cerberus, there's a possible Arbiter, when the Arbiters of Fate was still alive, besides keeping Zack alive, there's got to be someone that would have to help Zack stay alive. And I think you know who too well, with the clips that you're seeing right now, who actually helped out Zack. Now, before I get into it, the Arbiters of Fate could go back in time, forth in time, as well as Aerith and Sephiroth, and even Genesis. Now, do you remember the Dirge of Cerberus secret cutscene, where the final act? I say Vincent Valentine from the Dirge of Cerberus timeline. Now there's two Vincent Valentines. One that we're going to meet, like the regular game, where we wake up from the coffin, he gets pissed off, and he bitches at you for waking him up, because he's trying to repent for his sins for what happened to Lucretia. And then, Dirge of Cerberus Vincent Valentine, which I apologize for him. I don't have Dirge of Cerberus emulated on the PS4, and my laptop's on the fritz, so it's like a glorified wallpaper right now. But more on that later on. But yes, so you're going to see OGFF7 Vincent, but still, take it as the Dirge of Cerberus Vincent. Dirge of Cerberus Vincent Valentine became an Arbiter of Fate after Dirge of Cerberus. Even though Chaos has returned to the planet and Vincent is at peace, I could see Vincent being, because Vincent is like Doctor Strange, and, you know, Dracula, you know, a supernatural type of hunter type of person. personality type where he deals with some of the supernatural forces. It's because of the original concept thing. It's possible that Vincent joined up with the Arbiters because he's seen Genesis. After Genesis woke up from the cave, took Weiss's body, Vincent and Genesis has faced off and fought before. So the Dirge Cerberus Vincent is the one who saved Zack. Was ordered to go back in time at the end of Crisis Core and shoot the last remaining soldiers. And that's why Zack is alive. Because Dirge Cerberus Vincent went back in time with the for the Arbiters, because now Dirge Cerberus Vincent is now an Arbiter of Fate. And remember, this is a theory video. This could be proven wrong and anything. I'm not gonna go into why I think this is right or anything like that, because I'm not gonna, like I said, people could make fun of my theories if they want. It's free speech in my comments. But I do expect people to listen. Dirge Cerberus Vincent would have to become an Arbiter of Fate, because in order to stop Genesis, he couldn't stop him in his own timeline, especially without the aid of Chaos. So it's possible he agreed with the Arbiters of Fate, became an Arbiter himself, went back to save Zack, the only man that is known to defeat Genesis. Because Zack has vanquished and defeated Genesis. So with Zack's help, the past Zack from a different timeline is going to be an Arbiter of Fate alongside Vincent, Dirge Cerberus Vincent, that has all the memories all the way to Dirge Cerberus until the end of Dirge Cerberus. And maybe the Arbiters of Fate has probably promised Vincent that they wouldn't get Lucretia off of Crystal Life Support, because let's be honest, Lucretia is on Crystal Life Support. She is pretty much a crystal vegetable. Let's be real honest. But maybe the Arbiters of Fate will change it for Dirge Cerberus Vincent if Dirge Cerberus Vincent goes save Zack and recruit 2 Time Warriors to defeat Genesis and Sephiroth and stop them from their time-altering or time-destruction plans ever. So, yeah, that's the that's the whole whole premise of this right there. Even if they can't directly interfere, we'll still get some, we'll still get, they can't, even if the past Zack that gets saved for remake, even the past Zack that gets saved for remake, he can't directly interfere with what goes on, and neither could Dirge Cerberus Vincent, but they could give wise advice, almost like a spiritual guide, to tell Cloud what he needs to do to stop this version, to stop Remnant Sephiroth, regular Sephiroth in the regular timeline, Genova, and most important, all of Genesis, since Genesis is the one who kickstarted the plan. If you remember this goes back to the Dirge Cerberus cutscenes. Again, I don't have no Dirge Cerberus cutscenes. Do not get mad at me. I'm using Crisis Core Reunion, so don't get pissed off at me. And I didn't record any Genesis clips, so just bear with me. But Genesis at the end of Dirge Cerberus, the secret cutscene, he says we got a lot of work to do. What could that work be? And maybe the Weiss and Nero we fight in the remake aren't the original Weiss and Nero. They could have been sent from the future as well to mess things up, which would also still keep the timeline corrected, because Weiss and Nero will not, the original Weiss and Nero won't appear until Dirge Cerberus. But with the new Vincent being aware of them, they'd probably be dealt a little bit faster than they were in the original timeline, which would still change the timeline without messing up the timeline. Which I'm gonna be honest, I don't want to talk about time traveling. Even if Stephen Hawking, the guy who wrote books about time travel, even though he was methodical with his stuff, time traveling is a very hard subject, because you do one thing in one time, you create several different timelines. Now, Dirge of Cerberus Vincent helping out Zack, and even if Dirge of Cerberus Vincent never goes talk to Cloud, just having alternate timeline Zack talk to Cloud would change everything. And maybe it was set up by Sephiroth. Maybe Sephiroth messed up the timeline so badly, so messy, that the Arbiters of Fate had to do every countermeasure possible, thus time being destroyed. It's like Final Fantasy 13 2 when Caius goes back and changed things on purpose because, you know, he wanted to get back at Etrel for what happened to Yule. You know. But Dirge of Cerberus Vincent has made a deal with the Arbiters. Joins the Arbiters, gets Lucretia Crescent out of Crystal Life Support. They live happily ever. Even though Vincent's going to always be immortal because of his healing factor. But he would still be at peace because Chaos no longer possesses his body. So he gets the happy ending he gets if he just does a few chores for him. And that's why I think he went back in time the Crisis Core. Shot the 3 soldiers. And then something exploded in Midgar or something like that to knock Zack back, and Zack is like wondering, how the hell am I alive? Because this is where rebirth is. This is where rebirth is gonna change things. Because now we're gonna have present Cloud that we have in the remake integrate with a different Zack. If that means that Zack is still alive, that means that Cloud's real memories are going to come out real quick before the jumping in the live stream, because that means there's 2 Clouds in the same timeline. Unless the Arbiters push Zack to that timeline. But in the end of intermission, you do see Zack trying to go look for Aerith immediately. So, we're going to be seeing Zack very soon. I think Dirge of Cerberus Vincent's going to disappear for a while, but I think when Remake Part 3 comes out, we'll see Dirge of Cerberus Vincent as an Arbiter of Fate. Because the remake universe is very different from the original. Especially in the inclusive timeline, which I'm going to be honest, any story with time travel or clones or whatever, or alternate variants, even written by a smart, intelligible dude, it still is hard to understand. And this goes back to one of my favorite animes of all time, Dragon Ball Z, where you have one Trunks come from one timeline, but the one Trunks dies by Cell, but then you got another Trunks that, you know, comes from the android infested timeline, come back and help, which creates several different timelines, and, you know. But I think that's the Sephiroth and Genesis's plan, is to mess up the universe so bad that the Arbiters have no choice but to make a very desperate move. And then also this will explain Odin as well, since Vincent would be holding Odin at the time of Final Fantasy VII. So, Dirge of Cerberus Vincent would have the Odin materia. So Cloud's going to get his memory. The thing is, Cloud's going to get his memories back very soon and figure out he is not what he says he is. Which will mess up Cloud's mental up so badly that Sephiroth will be able to manipulate that and take control. So Sephiroth, I'll be honest, this Sephiroth is a genius. This Sephiroth... Of course, with the help of Genesis, I think they're cohorts with each other. I still will say that Genesis is responsible for all this. In fact, I'm going to make a theory video talking about how that Genesis is actually the one who planned this, but Sephiroth would be in cahoots because Sephiroth wants to fuck with Cloud. That's what Sephiroth's purpose is. This will fuck with him so bad to see Zack alive, get his memories back. He'd be so messed up that it would mess up the timelines. But the Arbiters won't know because the Arbiters are only designed to repair time, to stop Sephiroth and Genesis from their evil time-traveling plan. And that is my theory. So, you know, like and subscribe. May the crystal be with you. I've been wanting to do this for a while. Like and subscribe, share, do all that stuff. Interact, I don't care. If you disagree, leave it down below.